Hi everyone, my name is Maddy Zimmerman. I am with the University of Vermont Spatial Analysis Lab. The University of Vermont is based in the state of Vermont, which is in the... Is that good? Okay. State of Vermont, University of Vermont is in Burlington, Vermont, which is in the Northeast United States. So today I'm going to be talking about some work that we have done this past summer, and it's continuing on to this summer and potentially even further into the future, on Lymantria dispar, or the spongy moth, and defoliation of Vermont's forests. So this is the spongy moth, Lymantria dispar. It is invasive to Vermont. It was introduced in, I think, the 1990s. And it has a predator in Vermont, which is a type of like mold or fungus that grows on trees. So one reason that this has kind of become an issue this past spring, and as well as coming into the summer, is that Lymantria dispar, the spongy moth, defoliates trees. So the image you see on your left is, yes, on your left is of this spongy moth. They strip or eat off all the leaves from the trees and leave the trees without any foliage, i.e. defoliation. So that's causing a really big issue in Vermont currently, and it also caused this issue last spring, where these healthy forests, healthy trees end up having some issues because they don't have any leaves anymore. And one reason that the moths have gotten so bad is because when there are dry conditions, it's favorable for these moths and less favorable for the fungus that is its natural predator. So yeah, that's kind of the background of the issue that we're facing. And because the population in spring of 2021 was so high, the reproductive rate was also high, leading to potentially higher populations this spring. And we had a dry spring, unfortunately, again. So the moths are a big issue again. So our area of interest is the Little Hogback Community Forest. Again, it's in Vermont. It's kind of in the middle of the state. It's about an hour south of our university in Burlington, if y'all know where that is. We kind of focused on this forest because the county that it's in was hit particularly hard, just due to geographical placement and the way that, kind of the whole ecosystem works. It's between two kind of mountain chains. So also one of my coworkers at our lab lives right near this forest. This forest is owned and managed by community members. So it was, unfortunately, it was hit really hard by this event, or events, now turning into multiple events. But we had access to it and were able to fly near it, and there wasn't an airport nearby, so that's always a plus. Here's another little picture of this forest. All the trails are the colored lines, and then our area of interest that we focused in on is in the kind of oval at the bottom. And on the right is a close-up image of what this defoliation kind of looks like. So we have the healthy-ish, healthy-looking trees, and then the defoliated ones are kind of further in that right corner. So when we were looking at a criteria for what we needed in a drone, in a sensor, for researching and monitoring this event, this defoliation, we knew we needed something that was lightweight and deployable. And the timing kind of worked out great for us because we had just gotten a DJI Matrice M300 RTK and a Yellowscan Mapper LiDAR system. So, we had just gotten trained up on all this new equipment, great, and then the timing of this was, unfortunate, but kind of worked out for us. So we were able to deploy within hours of learning about this. It's something where it was practically in our back door, so in our backyard, so we were able to just go out to the forest and monitor when we were able to, along with both these systems being easily deployable. They're safe. We have our standard safety checks that we go through, and our team was comfortable flying this. And even with a slight change in elevation, because this forest is on a bit of a slope, we were able to fly it fine with terrain following. Along with these other characteristics of our drone equipment and our LiDAR system, we also needed to have rapid processing. Because this is an issue that changes so quickly from week to week, and you'll see in a few slides some images that we have of every couple months, the change is drastic. And we really needed something that we'd be able to collect the data quickly and process it quickly so we could have a better understanding of what was happening in near real time. So as I already previously mentioned, our UAS that we used is the DJI Matrice 300 RTK. And then we also used a DJI Mavic 2 Pro. My coworker Kelly used this to take some images, just still images, nothing for mapping, that you'll see in a few slides. For our sensors, we used our Yellowscan Mapper LiDAR system. And that was, even though when we started collecting data, the leaves were defoliated, we would have gotten relatively good coverage of the ground through photogrammetry. We knew that, we were hoping that the forest would recover, and which it did, spoiler. But we knew that we needed something other than photogrammetry to map a complex forest environment. We, in addition, used the MicaSense Red Edge MX dual camera system, which is a 10-band multispectral camera. This was, since then we've gotten a camera attachment for our LiDAR system, but this is the camera system that we had at our disposal at the time, so we were able to get true color imagery as well as 10 bands of multispectral imagery, which, as I'm sure some of you know, are extremely helpful for looking at vegetation. Here is a very quick diagram of kind of the multispectral, can't think of the word, the multispectral spectrum. Yeah, that works. Wasn't quite what I was looking for, but of our multispectral sensor, so you can kind of get an idea of what a healthy plant looks like and the wavelengths of light that would reflect and what a stressed plant would look like. So using our 10-band system, especially because it has 10 bands as opposed to something that has 3 to 5, we're able to get a much more detailed or better view of what exactly, where exactly on the multispectral spectrum the plants are lacking, or how they're unhealthy. This is a picture of our M300 and LiDAR mapper. We were flying from this clearing at the base of this forested hill, kind of. We have our UVM van in the background and our geobase set up because at the time we were not close enough to a local surveying station, so we had to do a local geobase. So here is some of that imagery that I mentioned before, taken by a DJI Mavic 2 from my coworker Kelly. So she lives right near this forest, was able to just send her drone up and take these pictures throughout the season, which was incredibly beneficial for us. So this is June 14th, 2021. Maybe 60% of this main slope is defoliated, has lost, where the leaves have lost their leaves. If we go forward to June 23rd, less than 10 days later, this is the same exact slope. That's, we can't really see the other side of the slope, but it was pretty uniform across the slope, and that's at least 80% of these trees have been defoliated. That's a huge impact on any ecosystem, especially in a community that's more rural and, don't know if you've ever had Vermont maple syrup. It's delicious, but some members in this community too, and nearby farms are dependent on maple production, which depends on the health of the trees. So this has some larger lasting impacts rather than just what we see on the surface level. So this is June 23rd, and then we have July 7th, which is about 2 weeks later, a little bit over 2 weeks. And we see that a lot of this forested hill has grown back, which is fantastic. We didn't really know what to expect. But, maybe there's like 20%, 25% that's still defoliated. Like, that's a massive change in the time of 2 weeks. Then we have August 25th, 2021, about a month later, and this hillside in the front, besides a few trees here and there, you could, if you didn't know any better, I'd say this looks pretty healthy. You wouldn't have known that, something swept through this entire community forest and defoliated all of these trees. Then finally, we have October 13th, 2021. With this picture, we get the benefit of our beautiful Vermont foliage colors. But again, you can see a couple trees here and there, especially in the foreground of this image, that are defoliated. That may also be due to the fact that they're dead trees. Who knows? But practically the entire hillside is recovered in vegetation that's healthy and is changing color in the way that it should and at the time that it should. So for our baseline kind of orthomosaic data, we used some NAPE imagery, which is the National Agriculture Imagery Program. And, it was a little bit better than what we could find in Google, a little bit more up to date, but that is kind of the baseline of what a healthy forest in this area should look like. This is the July imagery, and this is a true color orthomosaic taken with our 10-band multispectral mica sensor. The colors are a little funky. We couldn't figure that one out, but the pink is the ground. So wherever you're seeing through to the pink is where trees have been defoliated. And the green is obviously where the tree leaves are or where they have not yet been defoliated. So this is July, and then August. And although it was very evident from the images before, getting a bird's eye look straight down at this and being able to switch back and forth and see the change in how the forest recovered is, I think, incredible. And you can still kind of see that, some places a little bit more pink is showing through. It's a bit more patchy. Yes, this forest isn't in peak health, but we were aware of that. And this transition to how much it recovered in this span of time is just incredible. So here again, we have the July imagery. This time, it is multispectral imagery. I could not tell you off the top of my head which band combination this was, but this time, colors are kind of reversed. Green is forest floor, pink or red or fuchsia, or darker shades for like colorblind folks. Those are the trees. And, I think it's, similar effect of the true color imagery where, you can see how much is defoliated, obviously. But when we switch to August, I think the change in refoliation, if you will, is even more apparent. So here we have our LiDAR point cloud that we generated in Cloud Station with our data that we got that we collected using our Yellowscan Mapper. You can see our flight line trajectory went kind of like parallel up this slope to help with elevation change and terrain follow. Once we brought it in to here and check the coverage in the field. And then once we got back to our lab and had all the data safely saved on our servers, we then went in to check the flight lines again and do the strip adjustment and the rest of the processing. In addition, in CloudStation, we did the classification, which worked well, and I think we also did the colorization of the point cloud in CloudStation. So this is a point cloud. This is displayed in like an elevation gradient. This is the July point cloud, and it's the screenshot is from software called QT Modeler that we just are familiar with in our lab, so we use. But you could get a similar effect in the CloudStation app as well. So you can kind of see it's a little bit trickier to see compared to the ortho imagery per se. Where's defoliated and where's not. But if we go to the digital surface model and looking at it from a bird's eye view again, or a drone's eye view, we see the kind of lack of coverage in this forest and the brighter areas where the ground is showing through. So this is the DSM or digital surface model from August. If I switch back really quick, this is July and August, July, August. These models are just kind of reinforcing what we were already able to visually analyze with our ortho imagery, that the forest was extremely defoliated, maybe about 75% defoliated at the time in July. And then the recovery that happens before late August is just incredible and very, very significant too. It's not like a few more trees have foliage. It's the vast majority of this section of forest. So this is our classified point cloud. Red is above ground points. That's everything from bushes to trees, all of that. And then ground is in green. This is our digital elevation model from July. And this is not super pertinent to looking at tree canopy cover because it's just the ground. But when we combine it with other models, this is an NDSM from July, and that is a normalized digital surface model, which pretty much shows the change between the DEM and the DSM. So anything that's different between the bare ground model and the surface model that we saw before. So this is pretty much the above ground material. If we switch to August for the NDSM, that again reinforces that all of this biomass that was lost has grown back, and we're able to verify it, a third, a fourth, a fifth time. This is our point cloud profile. Again, we're viewing this in QT Modeler, but you can also view it in CloudStation, which is very helpful. And, this slope that's the hill that this forest is on. We can see individual trees as well as the tree canopy. And it looks a little sparse, but, you're like, oh yeah, sure, I see a forest. If we switch to the August point cloud, that is a noticeable difference. We see the understory has regenerated along with tree canopy, which is a massive indicator of forest health. And then if we compare the two point cloud profiles, July is in green, August is in red behind it. So again, you can kind of visually analyze the difference between what has been lost and what regrew in that span of a month. If folks would like to pull out their phones, if you haven't already, you can scan these QR codes. You can use your camera app on your phone. You don't have to take a picture. You can just hold your camera app open and tap the QR code. We have a web map, which is a 2D ArcGIS map that's a mobile application. that has the ortho imagery, the DSMs, the DEMs, the NDSMs should be in there too, that you're able to, kind of zoom in and look closely at all of our imagery if you'd like. The web scene is a 3D map of our LiDAR point cloud in ArcGIS, that you can pull up on your phone and show to your friend tomorrow if you want. And I'll leave this up for another minute. Okay, everyone got a picture? Who needs it? I see one more phone. Okay, cool. If you want this information afterwards also, or you weren't able to get the QR codes to work, just let me know. So future research, I threw a lot of information at you, and I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what the point is to this monitoring, besides it obviously having an impact on the community and the ecology of this ecosystem and environment. We don't necessarily know the longer lasting implications of this effect on the ecosystem and on local communities in Vermont. So very luckily for our lab, our intern from last summer and now staff member has chosen this topic for her undergrad research thesis, which is fantastic because she's done background research. She did all the research on what a natural predator of Lymantria dispar or the spongy moth is, which in turn helps all of us understand the situation a little bit better and gain more context. So kind of luckily for her thesis, I guess, unlucky for the ecosystem, the spongy moths are quite bad again this spring, as I mentioned before. The environmental conditions were dry, which leads to more spongy moths. That's what we're seeing this spring. To really quick, kind of paint a visual, if you imagine it raining, imagine the sound of rain. Now, imagine that is caterpillars falling on your roof instead of water. That is what one of my coworkers, Kelly, who I mentioned before, who lives right near this forest, that is what she said that the caterpillars sound like a week ago, like it's raining. And she said that they're everywhere. They're covering everything. She has dogs. They have to pick them out of their fur. It's bad. So that means, though, that we're going to have a lot to map. So we're looking at monitoring in July as soon as we can with our LiDAR system, as well as the camera attachment that goes on it, and our multispectral camera as well, because as we saw in some of the previous slides in ortho imagery, that multispectral data gives us a lot more information than just true color imagery can, in addition to the LiDAR. And then August, we did mapping in July and August of last year, so we're hoping to do the same thing, hopefully a few more times if possible, if our schedule allows it and things are able to move forward. And hopefully, this data helps inform not only my coworker's undergrad thesis, but also, some environmental management, natural resource management, potential remediation efforts in the future, or if anywhere else, especially with global warming and climate change, things like this, inclement weather effects or weather events are happening more and more. Things like this where populations are kind of going unchecked during seasons because weather changes, that's going to be happening way more frequently. So having this data to look back on so that we can learn from events from the past and the future is super important. And hopefully we won't need much of that knowledge, but we have it nonetheless. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and thank you to the members of the community forest that we mapped, and also thank you to Yellowscan, because one, this was an amazing opportunity to present, which I was very excited for. I have a lot of anxiety. I wasn't super excited. That's a secret. And thank you also for your LiDAR system, because it's made a huge difference in our mapping capabilities and the work that our lab can do, which is very, very important. Thank you.